I saw tons of Spider-Man cartoons growing up. On Jetix, Toon Disney, and Disney XD, many reruns of older Spider-Man shows were aired. The 90s animated series is probably the most popular and well-known show about Spider-Man. Many people say this show is what made them Spider-Man fans. It was one of the best superhero cartoons of its era, up there with Batman the Animated Series and X-Men. 20 years after the show's debut, I'm here to ask, is Spider-Man still good? Unlike Batman the Animated Series, I don't think this show's aged very well at all. I noticed several problems with the show in my episode rewatching. I'll go through them all. Spider-Man was animated in the mid-90s, and a lot of the animation looks really bad, especially when compared to the other action series that came out around the same time, like Batman and Superman the Animated Series, or Gargoyles. The show had a very detailed art style which is not found in most modern animation. It was made like this to resemble the comic books. This art style is more appealing to the eye than the spectacular Spider-Mans, but it also made the animation less fluid, harder to animate, and forced them to reuse stock footage a lot in later seasons. Often when characters talk, there is this odd zoom in and out of their faces, and their heads and mouths would move very strangely. There was frequent use of CGI buildings throughout the show, which I thought was alright, but most people don't seem to like. This show suffered from a lot of censorship from Fox. Batman the Animated Series had less censorship and started in 1992. By the time Spider-Man came around in 1994, Fox had a lot of their most popular kids shows banned in foreign countries due to too much violence. So naturally, Fox was very nervous about violence in their kids shows, and placed a lot of censorship rules on Spider-Man. There was a lot of really weird rules. I'll just go through some of the major ones that I had a problem with. There was very little punching in this series, which usually wasn't an issue because with Spider-Man's fighting style, he never really needed a punch that often. Most of the time he just uses his webs and kicks the opponent or something. Even in Spectacular, he didn't really punch that often. But yes, the heavy censorship ruined every action scene in the show and made them really hard to sit through. The show was never allowed to use real guns, but instead lasers. Using lasers instead of guns isn't really a big problem. A lot of other good kids' cartoons use lasers. I think the issue is, with Spider-Man's animation style, whenever lasers were used, it just looks silly and ridiculous. Especially when cops were carrying lasers. If the animation style was similar to something like Gargoyles or Superman the Animated Series, it probably wouldn't have been much of a problem. The dialogue is a very criticized aspect of the show, but that was never really an issue for me. The voice acting is also a very debated subject about the show. Some people like it, some people hate it. I think the quality on average is fine, even with the occasional overacting hamminess.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
Christopher Daniel Barnes may have had an odd voice and overacted at times, but I thought it worked for the most part. He's still the definitive voice of Spider-Man for me, even if Josh Keaton is technically better. Mark Hamill also voiced the Hobgoblin in this show, and that was pretty cool.
You clown! I don't want to hurt him. He's my bankroll. He's paying me to keep my mouth shut. I know his dirty little secret.
And now we get to what I think is the show's biggest problem, the pacing. The show had insane pacing, mostly during action sequences. My only guess for why they did this is because they couldn't afford to animate more scenes, so they just sped things up to cut corners. Honestly, if this show had proper pacing, it'd probably be easier to overlook every other flaw the show has. Okay, let's wrap this up. So how does the Spider-Man cartoon hold up after all these years? Well, despite me being so negative to this point, there are still some stuff I like about the show. Peter Parker's character is written well, the story arcs were kind of interesting, and the writers tried their best not to talk down to kids. There are a lot of things about the show that are clumsy or not well put together, and I'd be lying if I said it was as good as Batman TAS or Spectacular Spider-Man. But it still had a passionate story, and you could tell the writers did put a lot of effort into making the show work. And that's all you can really ask for. Effort.